Well, now to a decision in a legal battle about two orcas from Marineland in Antibes. Wikie and her son Keijo are now to remain in the amusement park Marineland until the end of a health expertise report. That's the decision which has come today. Marineland, of course, is to close its doors. It announced on January the 5th due to economic difficulties. Well, to tell us more about all of that, we have our science correspondent today, Julia Seeger. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Angela.
Tell us more.
So it's a long legal battle that's led by the NGO One Voice. It dates back to September 2023 when the courts already at the time had ordered an expertise on the living conditions of those orcas in Marineland. Now, as you said last week, Marineland announced its plan to shut down as of January 5th, so it's coming very shortly, for economic issues, but also as an anticipation of the application of a law that was voted in 2021 to ban all marine mammal shows starting in December 2026. Now, of course, the question is who will be able to accommodate these two orcas now? So at first, Marineland looked to a park in Japan, but the government refused that transfer, saying that it wouldn't change their living conditions in a big way. Now they're looking at another park, but this time in the Canaries, in the Spanish Canaries. Same thing. NGOs are saying it won't change anything. So what they're pushing for is an other option, which is transferring those orcas to what we call a marine sanctuary. And one of the candidates is the whale sanctuary project. It's in Nova Scotia in Canada. It's still under construction, but it could be ready as of next summer to welcome those two orcas. So what does it look like? Well, as you can see, it's an ambitious program. It closes off an entire bay of 44 hectares with nets so that the orcas can retire in peace and in a natural environment. Let's listen in to Charles Vivek. He's the executive director of the project.
We will provide in the sanctuary full-time care, full-time feeding with veterinarians and animal care staff so that in the case of the two orcas at Marineland Antibes, Wikie and her son Keijo, they would have the same amount of care that they've had anywhere, but they would also have room to dive, room to swim, the ability to experience a natural sea floor and experience the waves. And just as Keiko did 25 years ago, the birds flying across and the birds landing on the water. And he loved to chase them. And we will expect that certainly Wikie and Keijo would have that same kind of experience where they can thrive in a natural environment while still having the kind of human care they need.
So, Angela, the sanctuary actually reached out to Marineland and to the government about a year ago, but they still haven't heard back. And the issue is that they can't go on with this project. They can't start raising funds, for instance, for this project unless the French government takes a stance and has somewhat of a commitment. Now, we know that this could actually bear fruits because it's been done before, this type of marine sanctuary. This is actually what happened with the killer whale from the movie Free Willy. His name was Keiko, and he was actually rehabilitated from Oregon to Iceland, and that was in 1999. And most of the people that are part of this sanctuary actually participated in that mission as well.
And you participated in that mission, I think, didn't you? Tell us
I
about
did.
that.
And so to tell you more about this, I have to go back to this iconic scene that I just told you about, Free Willy, this moment where Willy is set free. You can see it here. I think an entire generation will always remember this scene. But it was also dubbed the biggest lie of our generation. And I think when the kids realized that this was not true, that Keiko was actually still in captivity, he wasn't free, they got really mad and they started protesting, sending money, so much so that Warner Bros. Decided to collaborate with the Humane Society and the Ocean Future Society of Jean-Michel Cousteau. And so they created this huge world-first mission to rehabilitate this killer whale. And so as a symbol of the world getting together for biodiversity, they chose 5 kids, and I was happy to represent Europe in that expedition. Now, what's important is that Keiko's problems actually started way before that in a park in Mexico. He was in a very small, shallow aquarium. He contracted a papilloma virus, and you're going to see on those pictures that he had all of these lesions on his body, on the dorsal fins and the pectoral fins. Here you can see the entire team in Iceland with the pen in the background. But here he's actually in Mexico, and this is really when his health issues started. And so he was in a really bad shape. He then was transferred to the Oregon Coast Aquarium. There he really regained his health. He got a bigger pen, and eventually he was indeed transferred to Iceland. Now, the way they do it, and this is actually what would happen for Wikie and Keijo if they were to be transferred, is that they're placed in this sort of cloth sling, if you will, and that's how we transport them. There you can see it in an Air Force C-17 plane. And so he was then transported to that sanctuary in Vesman. It's an enormous floating structure, if you will, and same thing, you have nets so that he can communicate with other mammals, because I actually got to meet him a little bit, but all the credit has to go to all of the team, all of the veterinarians, the scientists, all of his trainers that all moved to Iceland for years and were with him every day to teach him how to be back into the wild, to teach him how to prey. Because one of the issues, and you're going to see it on these pictures, is that he was playing with his food. He was playing with the fish. He didn't know how to kill fish. So all the credit really needs to go to all of these people who for years were really with him.
And did they ever release him into the wild?
They did. Several months later, they released him into the ocean. He actually returned to a pod for a little bit, but he was never really accepted. He never really accepted them. And he was always looking for human contact going back to the shoreline. Some will say it was a failure, but I think it's the orca that has been the most studied in the world, and he really changed the mindset of everybody. Now, it's important just to say as a conclusion that Keiko was set free because he was born in the wild, but as of for Wikie and Keijo, they were born in captivity, so they won't be able to go back to the wild. One last thing, we're going to have to wait which government is next and the type of stance they're going to have on this issue. They're going to have to decide because it's coming up shortly. If they choose the marine sanctuary, they choose a larger, bigger, more beautiful project, and they choose to make an example out of this for the next generation.
Fascinating. Wow. Thanks ever so much, Julia. Julia Seeger there, our science editor.